Here we are again, my friends. Welcome to another episode of A Radio Life. I'm Bradley J, and is this working okay? Is it lagging? Anyway, Bradley J, A Radio Life, and in this, I'm kind of putting together all my stories. The stories from a weird rural Gothic upbringing to coming to a moderately sized city like Boston, and kind of being a major market radio person. There are a lot of stories. There were a lot of stories as a kid, as a high school student. It seems like stuff happens to me, or maybe I just remember it. I don't know, but there are a lot of stories. Today we're going to go from the beginning of college to getting to WBCN at least. And I did touch on college a little bit yesterday, but it was kind of formative, and I need to spend a little bit of time on it. I am recording all these in Pro Tools, and I'm going to stick them together for a big audio book, but also I'm posting them as an audio podcast on Buzzsprout. So feel free to comment if you like. Here we go. I went to college at University of New Hampshire. Being a New Hampshire guy, that was pretty good because I got in-state tuition at a really expensive school for out-of-state people. We're lucky that UNH is a good place, and it was a fun place too. I didn't go to college right away. Not right after high school. I did something else, which I've told you about before. And I can't imagine going to college right after high school. If I had children, I would certainly discourage that for a bunch of reasons. One is you're a little older. If you're a little older, you just do better, I think. You're not carried along by the current as much. You are more your own person. The University of New Hampshire was good. You can learn a lot if you want, but they don't make you. Some schools you'll flunk out if you don't go to class. I don't think UNH was. Well, I went to all the classes. I was just, let me tell you, I was not a great student, but we'll get into that. So, I started the University of New Hampshire as a boarder at a fraternity called ATO. And it was not I do not believe it was a great, in my opinion, it was not a great fraternity. It was difficult for them to even get people to join up. And because of that reason, they needed money, and they took on boarders, and there was a whole wing of their building right on Main Street in Durham that took boarders. So all of a sudden I have a whole bunch of new friends in this wing. My roommate, and I don't know, everyone kind of got along great. It was an open door policy. Everybody's hanging around in everybody else's rooms. It was really something. I got to tell you, college was fantastic for me. We, because they didn't have enough brothers, the boarders got to do brother stuff. If they were going to do something with a sorority, well, we got to do it because they needed people. That included parties. And I did have an incident right away at a party. Excuse me. They had a party on Halloween, freshman year. And I'll tell you the story. It's a good story. I have a lot of stories. I'd met this woman right away who came up to ATO and said, listen, my work study job is to teach people how to study, teach new students how to study. Who wants to do that? I definitely wanted to do that. And so I did. And I went over to her house and we kind of connected, meaning mentally. And she had a boyfriend who was very big, kind of lumberjacky, I think. And I was at this Halloween party at ATO, and this woman's ex-boyfriend was there, and I was all friendly, and he must have been jealous or something, but I walked up like an idiot, said, hi, my name's Brad. He must have heard something about me because I was his ex-girlfriend's student now. But there was a chemistry. Don't get me wrong. But they were exes. What was he doing at that party anyway? The thing is, he wasn't in college. And he was so irritated by these students and by me. After a while, he snapped. He couldn't take it. And I walked by him one time and I heard him say, I can't take it anymore. and I was going up the stairs. The party was down in the basement. I was going up the stairs, and I hear him say, "I can't take it anymore." And I hear the, bang, bang, bang of lumberjack feet as I was going up the stairs. He grabbed me by the shoulder, spun me around, and pounded me right in the face. Like, he was a big dude, and it was a full-on pound. Luckily, he didn't hit my nose. Unluckily, he hit my eye and put my hard contact lens way back in the back of my eye. Like, that was an issue. And really only got hit one time, and some skinny other kid that was my friend started pulling him off. So we're on the stairway. He's trying to get me. The other guy's trying to pull him off. This is all going on the stairway. And that was, that happened. That was a college thing. You're not supposed to have fights in college, right? So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I just liked being at college because it was fun. And I guess at the end you get a degree. But I was, I was there because it was a good life. You get to learn stuff. It's an academic environment. I love that. But it's also an easygoing, casual, fun time. It was very mentally healthy. It was perfect. Go to classes and learn, put up your hand. Yes, I know the answer. I was always terrible at tests and even worse at papers. I never understood what they were looking for. And to this day, I probably still don't. And I always thought, no one's ever going to ask me for my grades. And you know what? I was right. No one ever did. In the field I went into, your grades do not count. College doesn't even count, really. I don't think. In my job, all you had to be was good and not a jerk. The thing college did was give you access to a radio station. But in many cases, you don't need to go to college because there's community members, like at WZBC in Newton, WMBR in Cambridge. There are radio stations even if you don't go to college. But I did go to college, but I didn't get involved right away. That came later. So in the beginning, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I kind of gravitated towards business. Isn't that weird? I had a business minor. How weird is that? And then I found out about a course called Argumentation 1 and 2. It was kind of a debate course. And this guy I knew and liked and respected and thought was cool, he took it, told me about it. I wanted to take that. I genuinely wanted to take it. That felt like me. The thing is, you had to be a communications major to take it. So I switched majors. I became a communications major. Is a communications major easy? Yes. I'll just be honest with you. Yes, this course actually was challenging. But a lot of communications was a lot of touchy-feely, not actual, like mental touchy-feely, not physical touchy-feely. It was pretty wishy-washy, I will say. But I did enjoy it. I also did end up with a business minor, for what that's worth. I took business courses and I liked them. Macroeconomics, microeconomics, organizational behavior, statistics, logic. I am argumentative. True, Joe. Let me put that comment right up there. You're argumentative. No, I'm not. Okay. And so gradually I became a communications major. And then at some point I got on the radio. But let me fill in a little bit of the blanks there before that. I lived in a million places. I lived in Durham at ATO. I lived in Newmarket. I lived in Dover, hitchhiking back and forth to class from Dover, hitchhiking back and forth to Newmarket. It was all so good. It was so beautiful and relaxing and great. And it was because I had done an intense job before that as an operating room technician, which was super stressful. To me, college was so nice. for example, living in Newmarket in a place called Berry Block. It was just an apartment building with probably 8 apartments, 4 each on 2 floors. Open door policy again. Everybody ate each other's food. Sometimes went out with each other. It was right on the Lamprey River, and some guy who was diabetic and blind rented out canoes for $1 an hour. So you could paddle down the Lamprey River on a lazy, hazy summer day for $1 an hour. I did stay during the summer. I was my brother's roommate sometimes, my brother Dave, and other reasons and examples of how UNH was good. I had a nice community of friends, just a few. I only one of them now. I think I connect with only one, but that's enough. I kind of am a believer in mostly going with the memories rather than trying to reconnect. I just recently got an invitation to my high school reunion. I tore it up. I don't want to go to that. I went to one of them and I did not like it at all. Those people don't know me. I don't know them. I know who they were then. I have the memories of them then, and I like that. I want to just leave that. Honestly, well, no, I'm not going to be honest. I have to draw the line somewhere. So I don't really connect with just a few. Actually, there's a couple. One's Mike Nikitas, who was a contemporary of mine at UNH and WUNH, who went on to be the news guy at NECN, and he's a great guy. And a couple of other folks who are really high quality people that I maintain relationships with, but very few. And college rolled along. I had a bunch of work study jobs. I stayed there in the summer sometimes. I worked at the dump in Lee, separating colored glass, clear glass, and newspaper. Like people would drive up in their car, and I'd say, put that stuff in that dumpster, that stuff in that dumpster, and that was it. And I'd stay there all day on a Saturday, put a piece of plywood over the top of 2 dumpsters, had an old easy chair, and read Kurt Vonnegut books. Didn't make much money, like $6 an hour. I was super poor, like really, really poor. For food, it was a can of beans and a hot dog. I would shop at the market, at the shopping place, and only buy food on the shelf that was about to go bad, the super on sale stuff. And I'd get a big thing of yogurt, mix it with pineapple and freeze it and eat that for a week. I'd go to the Memorial Union building for lunch and I would have, this is true. It didn't seem abnormal to me. And I love that I did that. And it's part of the reason I have a low overhead now is I'm a simple man. Here's an example of how simple. When I would eat lunch during the poor years, my lunch was saltines, which were free, and tea, and packets of relish and packets of ketchup. It was, people would be horrified at that. There's something to be said about a strict life like that. A splurge was a salad. And to get a better deal on the salad, what you do is you get your salad bowl and you go to the salad bar and then take like carrot sticks or something and make the bowl bigger. You know how on a lumber truck, there are these big wooden things that are tall and you put the lumber in? Kind of the same thing. You put these carrot sticks on the edge of the bowl and it makes the bowl bigger and you could fill that up with more salad. So very poor, but really, really poor. And sometimes, like when I had to pay the rent and stuff, I'd get stressed out. But generally, it wasn't terrible. I lived all over the place, had roommates all the time. When I moved, each time I moved, I could move everything in one Volkswagen Bug. That's it. Had a few clothes, and that's it. And I was just as happy then as I am now with all my stuff. And I'm remembering that. And I actually don't have that much stuff now. I could move all my stuff now in one trip in a an SUV, pretty much. I've maintained that college lifestyle. I don't have a home where it's all nice for people to entertain. I don't want to entertain people. If you entertain people, you're going to buy nice glasses, nice china, all the stuff for people to come over. A long time ago, I decided I don't really want people to come over. It saved me millions of dollars. Maybe that's oversharing. At some point, a guy named Theo Metropolis said, "Hey, I work at the radio." It was at a party or going to a party, I think. Maybe Mike Nikitas. Actually, Mike Nikitas introduced me to Theo Metropolis. And he mentioned the radio station there. I said, yeah, that'd be fun, I guess. And I kind of put it out of my mind, but it was in the back of my mind. And then one summer when I was living there, it's so quiet and there's not much to do. I went and figured out how to make an audition tape. No one would teach me. You just have to figure it out. And it was really hard. It took, I don't know, weeks to just figure out how to make a tape. Not to actually make it, just figure out how. I made a tape. I'm sure it was terrible, but it passed muster. And I was on WUNH. That was my first radio job. And I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. It had the old board with the turn pots. And I can't remember if I started in junior year or senior year. I think junior year. But right away, when you get on the radio, you get sort of cool cred. You just do. And that's a big draw to being on the radio. Cool cred. It's like being in a band. Back then, at UNH, there was some cool music like I like now. And there was some mainstream stuff like Dire Straits, and it would be mixed together. Let's see. That was important. One summer, I went down to DC just because. Why? Because I had nothing to do that summer. I had to borrow. Here's how shoestring it was. I had to borrow $1 to get on the train. I had $24. The train fare was $25. I had to borrow $1. So I arrived in DC with $0. But I had a friend, and his sister lent me $100. And I managed to get an apartment and 2 jobs. I worked on Capitol Hill at a place called the Hawk and Dove Pub, which is still there. And I also worked at another place, which is not still there, and hung out at a place called the Tune Inn, which is also still there. This is right on Capitol Hill. My apartment was a basement apartment on the 700 block of Constitution Ave. No, sorry. Of East Capitol Street. So when I would go out into the street, right down the street, 7 blocks was the U.S. Capitol. That's cool. That was a good experience. Anything else to do with about college? No, that pretty much does it. During college, I did my first radio MC gig. I suppose this is the time to tell you that story. It was the Talking Heads at Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom. The Talking Heads were coming to town. I called the Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom and said, "Hey, I'm Brad, a DJ at UNH. Can I introduce the band?" And the guy was like, "No, forget it." He actually said, "Forget it, kid." So I forgot it. But when we got to the gig that day, and some of you who hear this will remember being at that gig, we were sitting at tables right up front. Somebody, probably from the radio station, somebody else, maybe the program director, maybe Dave, I don't know for sure, said, "Hey, let's go, let's do it anyway. Let's just MC him. Let's just do it." I said, "All right." So we got up and we went backstage looking for some door to knock on, and there were doors to knock on. We knocked on doors. We knocked on, actually, the first door we knocked on. Guess who answered the door? Yes, David Byrne. David Byrne answered the door. That was a giant deal. Knock, knock, knock. Door creaks open. It's David Byrne. So one of us said, probably me. Can we introduce you on stage? We're from the radio station here. And I know for a fact that I was a dweeb. I'm not going to speak for my colleague. He may have been a dweeb. No, he was not a dweeb, but I kind of was. I was a little bit meek. I had no skills on stage yet. And I do remember getting up, doing the MC thing and realizing that I didn't have skills, which later I learned at WBCN. There's a specific way to do it when you go on stage. It can be taught. At least the basics can be taught. So that was good. That was right towards the end of college. I graduated in August. I took a couple of summer courses, including astronomy and macroeconomics, both of which were the best courses I took. Immediately upon graduation, I moved to Boston. The day after, the next day, 2 days maybe, and I moved to the same place everyone moves to, Brighton, on the same street most people move to, Com Ave. I lived in the 1700 block of Com Ave, near Service Liquors. Some of you will know where that is. Not too far from Boston College. And the first day I got here, I went looking for a job, and I got a job. First day at TGI Fridays. And I loved that. So I had a place to live. I was sleeping on somebody's couch. I moved in with ex-college roommates for $75. Actually, it's my couch, but I paid them $75 a month to sleep on the couch, which was fine. It was wonderful. And I worked at TGI Fridays as a busser. Also fine, also wonderful. Immediately, I had a community of people, of cool dudes, cool women. There were people to hang around with, people to date, people to go to concerts with, and boy, we did all that. It was wonderful working there. The pay was good. They had health insurance. You got a free shift meal and a shift beer. After a while, you had to pay half price for the shift meal. Still, fantastic place to work. They had health insurance. I worked there for 3 years. And there was a guy in the back named Tall Paul who knew a guy named Tom. Actually, he knew a bunch of guys who worked at WZBC. He knew Dave, Jim, and Tom. And he said, because he knew I did college radio at UNH. By the way, after moving to Boston, I went to see Gary Newman at the Harvard Square Theater. And some of the UNH people came down and said, you should do shows again at UNH. I said, yeah, I should. I miss it. So I started hitchhiking up there every week, doing a show for 3 hours. Actually, no, I took the bus up there and then hitchhiked back. And I taped the show, and I did it for the tape. I loved the tape. I loved the music. I loved it. It was worth hitchhiking every week from Durham to Boston. So they knew I was doing that when I was working at Fridays, and they said, you ought to check in with Dave and Tom and Jim. Maybe you can work at WZBC. So I did. I met with them, and it was kind of a coolness test. I mean, they just needed to see if I was a jerk, and they wanted to see about my taste in music. Really. Did I have the appropriate taste in music? And I did. So they said, all right, you're good to go. And I didn't need to be a student at Boston College. This was the Boston College radio station. And I went for training one night, and now I'm living on Sutherland Road, which is right off Cleveland Circle. 2 Sutherland Road, I think. So I could walk there on a hot summer night, and Dave Herlihy of O Positive and Northeastern University fame, he's still active. He's an excellent guy. He's still active in music and I'm guessing he's still an intellectual property lawyer / entertainment lawyer. He's a really good musician. He's got a great band. Remember O Positive? And he's got other bands now. I actually did a little project with him, which still exists. The name of the band was Excess Plaid. Or was it? It might have been The Felt Tips. And the song was Excess Plaid. Whatever. So he's doing a show called Spacious Headquarters. And I went there and was training. I said, "You're doing a good job. I'm sick. You take over. Can you take over?" I go, "Yep." And I did. I was fine. I was very careful, conscientious to shut down the station like you're supposed to and everything. I did it. I was fine. And from that moment on and off, I've been at WZBC ever since. There have been big gaps of years during the pandemic. I didn't do it. I just started up again. You can hear those shows either on the station or on Mixcloud. This show now is called Ignore the Machine. And so it was a good life working at Fridays as a busser. After a while, more and more college DJs started working at this TGI Fridays. I'm going to turn on the AC because it's getting hot and my hard drive might blow up. At one point, there were 8 or 9 college radio DJs. The great Peter Gates from WMBR was there. Many. So we would do our jobs while we're doing them. We're passing each other as a busser or a waiter, talking about music, in the service bar, talking about music. It was a great gig. And that Fridays was not like the other Fridays. It was not like a mall Fridays. This was where it was happening. This was a pickup joint. This was Newbury Street, right by the Rocky Horror Picture Show. By the way, we used to come down from UNH to go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So we have we're working the Fridays, going to and working at WZBC. At some point, there was a station in Lynn, which was a Spanish-speaking station, and some guy named Rich Anzalone convinced them to do cool rock in the night. So they fielded folks from college radio to do that. And I got to do that. The great Albert O preceded me. I kind of followed him there. And then I followed him 6 months later to WBCN. Here's how we met Albert O. You know Albert O from WBCN. Fantastic guy. Fantastic taste in music. Always funny and fun to talk to. It was very early on in my time in Boston. Very early, just maybe weeks. It was probably late fall of the fall I arrived. I went to a place called Tickle T-Shirts on Newbury Street. The guy was working there, said, "I do college radio." I said, "I do college radio." He said, "Well, why don't you come by?" So, not in the not too distant future, one chilly evening, I walked over the Mass Ave Bridge to the 3 Ames Street through the Walker Building and visited him. And the song that I remember from that visit, and this was pretty late at night, was Fingerprints with a Z, Wet Job. That's not a song you know, probably. Some of you, very few of you will, but I play that song from time to time, and that's what I think of as that night with Albert O. So he worked at WLYN. I got a job there. A woman named Crass was the program director. And I don't think she'd ever been a program director before, but that's fine. And I did Sunday night, I think. Just one show a week. Steve Strick worked there, I believe, from WBCN. And I used to have to shut down the station. I'd take the bus there, go to the North End before getting on the bus and get a cappuccino and probably a biscotti or a cookie, get on the bus, go to Central Square in Lynn, do my show. I got paid $5 an hour, first paying gig. And then I couldn't go home because the last bus had already left. So I had to sleep on a couch there on a horrible black plastic couch with no AC. Horrible. Then in the morning at 5 something, I'd wake up and take the first bus back to Boston. It's, no one would do that. People wouldn't do that now. Sorry, very few people would. But if you're driven to do something, you will do it. You will do that. And if you're that driven, you will probably succeed. Also, what was going on at the same time? LYN. At some point, Crass, they got rid of Crass, the program director, so there was no program director. And we played whatever we wanted. Crazy stuff, like Wayne County and the Electric Chairs, Waiting for the Marines, and things like that. Weird stuff on the Some Bizarre Records label, like the first Soft Cell single. Really weird, wild stuff. And so for a while, I'm doing Fridays, ZBC and LYN, and I'm living on Marlborough Street. I lived in this hard. You would think it would be a good place. Nope. It was the basement of a brownstone on on Marlborough Street, right up near the Common. But it was a mess. Like my bed was actually a closet. There were roaches. It was damp. It was nasty. It was nasty. Good. You'd think it'd be a good neighborhood too, right? Not really. It was a food desert. The closest, you had to hump all the way to DeLuca's Market to get anything to eat. That was not a great place. Anyway, during that period of time, I'm starting to make tapes for Oedipus at WBCN because it's just what you do. You try to move up. It's what people are doing. I remember my roommate on Marlborough Street said, I said, there was somebody on BCN, and I said, that person's not that good. I can do that. And he said, no, you can't. No, you can't. What are you kidding? You can't do that. Turns out he was wrong. I could do it, and I did do it. I sent a tape to Oedipus. I didn't hear anything, of course, because it was terrible. He didn't need anybody. But the good news is he'd go to the same gigs that we would all go to. He did college radio too. He's from college radio, as was the general manager was also a DJ. So that all helped. They would go to the gigs. So they knew everybody in the college radio circuit. They knew people at ERS. They knew people at ZBC, MBR. Oedipus did a show at MBR. And a lot of the other jocks came from college stations as well. Carter Allen, Tammy Heidi, Albert O. That was a beautiful thing, man. It was the right place, right time, right circumstances, perfect storm. Just doesn't happen. I don't know if it was happening in other places that way, if that's how you got a gig that in other places, but in Boston at that time, if you were if you wanted to be somebody and you were willing to pay attention and you were interesting in any way, you could become a DJ and you might have a chance at success. So I sent another tape. Of course, I didn't hear anything, but whatever. I'm living the life. I'm loving it. Actually, it's a lot like my life now, which I also love. I sent another tape. That's 3. Whatever. I'll keep sending them. I don't care. I'm playing the long game. I sent a 4th. And then one day I was at WZBC, I remember. And I got a call on a phone, not a cell phone. And he said, hello, this is Oedipus. This is Oedipus. Like that. Anybody knows Oedipus, you'll know that that's pretty good imitation. This is Oedipus. Hey, when are you going to come do a show here? It's like, what? What? Yeah, when are you going to come do a show? So I ended up doing my first show on December 18, my birthday, at 4 a.m. What you do is you start in the early morning in case you're horrible, and which I'm sure I was not great. I was not great. I did 4 to 7, buried in the middle of the night. Oedipus had a smart policy of not even listening to people's first shows, which is good. You don't want to judge somebody on their first show. And you don't want the jock to know because they'll be all nervous. Oedipus was a great boss in many ways and a great friend. One of the ways he was a great boss, unless you were putting the station's license in jeopardy, he would not hotline you. The hotline is when where the program director calls, a red light flashes, and you're buzzard meat, or you're doing something wrong, or he corrects you, or do this, don't do that. He wouldn't call up ever unless it was a dire, license endangering emergency. So the jocks just did their thing. A long time ago, actually, during the last show ever at WBCN, Oedipus came in and hung out. And the dynamic was much different then. I had the confidence to ask him, hey, what was your theory on hiring people? And he said, well, I would search all over the world, not just the United States, the world, and I'd find the best people. But the thing is, he would just let them do their job. He was not a micromanager, which was excellent. He hired the people and he trusted them to do their job, which is good for him in a number of ways. It made the station sound great. And he could go golfing. It was, he had a great life because he was not a micromanager. And we had a great life and a great job because he was not a micromanager as well. So I did my first show. It was a snowy night. I went downstairs. It's on 1265 Boylston Street. Down to the garage. That's how you get in with a little card key. I don't know if I had a card key yet. Maybe. And I went up into the studio, and who was there but a guy named Chachi? This guy Chachi with another jock. I forget her name. Nolan. And they were very friendly, and I was scared to death. And there was they were looking through the record bin, which is the same record bin made out of kind of plywood. It was a homemade thing out of plywood, varnished. Same record bin that would be there for, 20 years, 22 years until they moved. And that record bin was not filled with records you had to play. That was filled with new records. In the beginning, and this is important, very important, in the beginning, the jocks chose this music. We would go in 2 hours ahead in the beginning anyway, an hour later, and we would pick our show. We would think, that will sound great because that person's coming to town. This will go with that. This will go with that. Oh, this will be good segue. This is a new song that's really great. We'll play. You could completely design your own show in the beginning. Early 80s, very early 80s. Then later, there was one rule. You had to play one of the big, what was it? The big 8? Might have been the big 5 at first, at the top of the hour. Then for a long while, the only rule was you needed to play one of these bands, probably AC/DC, Bruce Springsteen, Led Zeppelin, The Who, 2, 3 others. Carter Allen would know. Hold on, I'm fading out there. There we go. And then other than that, you got to choose your show. And gradually, that freedom was chipped away at over the years. But I don't want to focus on that. I will just say that real DJs choose their own music. That is part of the whole thing. It's an entirely different thing than going in and playing music somebody else picked for you. And say, even though you get to say what you want still, which is huge, most people don't. But if you're not picking the music, you're not really plying the craft. You're not creating a show where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And it was fun because we were trusted to do that. We all were. We were also trusted in that there were music meetings. Even later on, when there was a playlist, more and more playlists. There was more and more stuff we had to play. There were meetings with the jocks. All jocks were invited to go. And as a team, we decided Oedipus would have final say, but the jock opinion heavily weighed. Like if all the jocks thought something, Oedipus is probably not going to go against that. I mean, he might. But so it was very, very much, you had a huge responsibility. With that freedom came a huge responsibility because you could play something stupid and you get called out. You had to be able to justify everything you played. Why'd you play that? Well, either it was spectacularly good, everybody recognized it, and you knew that Oedipus recognized that, or they were coming to town, or something. There had to be kind of a reason, or it was new and good. You had to be able to justify it if called upon to do that, which was a big responsibility. So that's what it was like when I started in December 18. On December 18, snowy night. The next morning, I walked home with a feeling of accomplishment, went to Charlie's Kitchen in Kenmore Square, which was a kind of a cafeteria. Charlie's Cafeteria, sorry. And got something like baked stuffed peppers, some weird thing. And then went to Bay State Road and stayed overnight with a friend. And then I remember asking Oedipus sometime later, so, what'd you think? How'd I do? He's like, meh, which is true. But he said, none of the other jocks complained. Well, that's good. He said, and that's good. So, and he probably didn't listen. And that's good, as I mentioned before. But was I great? No, it took a long time to be great. I mean, good, sorry. It took a long time to get good. Years and years. I actually feel like stuff I've learned, there are a lot of things to not do, rookie ass mistakes, that I could save somebody so much time if they're a new DJ. And, people say radio is dead, and it may be. Well, not everyone says that. But the skills are the same. Podcasting skills, Mixcloud skills, broadcasting skills are the same whether you're on the radio or not. And I have so much to share. I might as well share some of the don'ts right now to prove it to you. I haven't thought about this in advance, so I'm not going to get them all. Things not to do. Rookie stuff not to do. Rookie DJs will play a song and kind of put down the song. That was the new song from The Who. It's all right. It's not that great. Don't do that. If you're playing it, you love it. As far as everybody knows, that's ridiculous. I mean, why would you play something you don't like? Why would a person listen to a station where the jock plays stuff they don't like? So don't do that. What else? Oh, jocks will want to talk up to the post. The big post is when the vocals start. There's some jocks that will just keep yammering on until even if it's a 58-second intro, they'll keep blabbing away. Don't. Just say blah, 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 WBCN, you're done. I mean, you can go 20 seconds or so on FM radio in the 80s, but there's no need to gratuitously talk up a song. Here's another thing. Once you go da-da-da-da, WBCN, you're done. If you have an afterthought, save it till next time. Thing number 3, edit your thoughts edit your thoughts always. And in the beginning, you can actually write them on a 3x5 card, just a little outline of what you're going to say. The key is, how are you going to get from point A to point B? Point A is, this is the station, this is the song, and the end of the line is the next song. There's stuff I have to do during this talk, this break. How am I going to get there? You don't have to memorize it. Just know how you're going to get there. And when you get there, be done. After a while, you get pretty good at it. Here's another tip. Don't have a bunch of elements in a break. 3, really. The station. Well, the song. Actually, 3. You don't need to say the station call letters all the time like it used to, because they don't do diaries so much. Before, people had to know what station they listened to, so you had to say it all the time. So we would say the station right first thing. Like if they turned off, you want them to hear the station before they turn off. So first thing, and you might back announce one. Don't back announce a bunch of songs. In college radio, yes. Professional radio, no. You get varying opinions on that from program directors, but really, why would you announce a song somebody didn't hear? It's the three elements: station, song, and some station business, some promo, something's going on with the station. We got this big giveaway, or we got this big live thing going on. So it just goes like this: station, the music, and something about the music, but that's included in that element, the music, and then station business or station event, and then the next song, you're done. You can pack a lot of personality in there. What else? I'm not going to continue to go on and on. What else? That ought to do it, I guess. There are other things that irritate me, but I won't get into them now. I guess this is a good place to stop for today. How long have I been doing this? 46 minutes. Let me see what else did I miss just in the Boston, being in Boston. Well, it was cool. I remember when I was working at Fridays, when BCN was up at the Prue, I said, someday I'm going to work up there. And I didn't, but I worked at that place. By the time I got there, they were at 1265 Boylston Street. Oh, I'll give you some of the early things that happened at BCN, because I have like 15 minutes to go. Some of the great things early on in the 80s. Well, as you get a little better at BCN, they let you do more, which is cool. You become more trusted to do certain things. Filling in on the big mattress, well, man, that was a trip. That was hard, because there was a structure to that. And you didn't have to do the whole structure, but you had to do some of it. And then there was the Michigas part. And I think sometimes, no, I can't really remember. Did the fill-ins play Michigas, or did they skip it on that day? The rest of you will know that better than I. But it was intense, though, doing the overnight and having the Charles crew come in really early and start wrestling around and doing stuff. Tank, Lance, a bunch of people, like a huge number of people. Some would say way too many people. Some have said way too many people, haven't they, Charles? But it was fun. Charles would run it. Some of it would be structured, and some of it was seat of the pants. Like a lot of the production was last minute, like in the production room. I need this thing in 18 seconds, 14 seconds. Get it in here. And they would slam it in there and play it on time. It was real radio. Couldn't have been any better. I'm so glad that I have those memories. And I like telling the story, so I remember it. Filling in on the big mattress was a big deal. Kind of a rite of passage, like a small leap. Filling in for Nocturnal Emissions, which was Oedipus's Baby, which was the creme de la creme of new music. To be trusted to do that show was a big deal. I did it. Alberto did it. Probably somebody else did it, but we kind of rotated. Oedipus would take the summers off that show a lot, and we would do that show. And you pretty much play stuff that was just a little too edgy to make it to the mainstream. Probably not stuff from college radio that was too weird, like Throbbing Gristle. Not going to make it. But if there was something that was really cool, and there just wasn't room for it on the main part of the day, that would be where you would play that. That was huge. That was my baby. I loved it. Tape those shows, still have the tapes, all that wonderful music, all the segues, using vinyl, baby, Technics 1200 turntables, and spinning that vinyl and planning that show out very much in advance. So it was, so that the whole was greater than the sum of the parts. In 1983, I've been there 2 years, I was assigned to do Bowie A to Z. And this is the kind of thing that just does not happen now. It was so cool. Unheard of. Huge balls to do this kind of thing. WBCN at Oedipus's direction and my glee, and to the glee of many listeners, in 1983 played every song that David Bowie ever made till that time. And even in 1983, it took over maybe 22 hours or something like that. Every song. And if there was a song with 2 versions or 3 versions, like Heroes has a German and a French, we would play all versions in a row. We wanted to be exhaustive in our search, researching the early singles, which were hard to find. As far as we know, we got every smidge of music that David Bowie had ever played, which paid off because when we met him during that tour, the Let's Dance tour, whatever you call that, maybe the Let's Dance tour, we could tell him with certainty that we had played every one of his songs. And I'll tell you that story now. You may have heard it. If not, great. If you've heard it before, you're going to hear it again. That was a big day for me, big night for me, and a big night for Oedipus too. Oedipus is a David Bowie super fan. He went on to become personal friends with David Bowie, actually rode on a bullet train in Japan, hung out with him in his hotel room. They were pals. They were buds. But at this time, this was 1983. This was new. And so we done the Bowie A to Z because of his show. He was coming to town and he did a show. So Oedipus and I, we went to the show. I remember going. I believe we probably drove in his white Mazda. I can't be sure. And we started broadcasting. It was kind of overcast. We broadcast from here and there at the event. It was still in the afternoon, and we were broadcast from the empty bleachers in the stadium, broadcast from here and broadcast from there. Once we were in the stadium bleachers and we saw a limousine, and we said, "Hey, I wonder if that's Bowie's limousine. Let's go in there and let's go in that limousine." So we went in the limousine. It was not locked. We went in and we sat in the same seats that Bowie had sat in, along with Bianca Jagger. Bianca Jagger was with him as his guest or date or whatever, his companion. They both smoked cigarettes, and so the cigarette ashtrays in the limousine had cigarettes in them. We surmised, because at the time I think Bowie was not wearing lipstick, that the ones with lipstick would be Bianca Jagger's. And I don't know how many butts there were. Maybe a total of 5. Anyway, I think I got 2 Bowie butts. Oedipus got the Bianca Jagger butt and 1 or 2 David Bowie butts. Yeah. So we were thrilled. Hold that thought. Then it got more and more intense. And the sun was starting to go down and the crowd was starting to file in. And the tension backstage was getting thicker and thicker because the show was going to begin. And, everyone was wondering who's going to meet David Bowie? Is anybody going to get to go backstage and meet him? This was a huge thing. Huge. No one knew, but Oedipus had a great relationship with the record company, that particular guy. I believe, was that Tom Jodka? I can't remember. That's not my job to remember that. I believe it was Tom, though. If not, I'm wrong. I admit it. No one knew who's going to get to backstage. No one knew where Bowie was, what trailer, where. It was getting dark. It was like a carnival atmosphere back there. Tense. The smell of sausages cooking. Think Todd Brown's Freaks. Did you ever see that movie? Without the freaks. Just everything except the freaks. And there were some sort of freaky people there. But then, all of a sudden, there was an urgency in the crowd. You could feel something shifted. And Oedipus received the message. Now, come on, now, let's go. Let's run. Go, run. So Oedipus followed, running, bending over, trying not to hit our head on tent poles or wires, not to trip over any charcoal things and burn ourselves, not to poke our eyes out on anything. It started to rain. It was dark. We're running behind this guy. Where are we going? Are we going where I think we're going? Because it hadn't actually been said where we were going. And then we came upon this trailer. It looked like one of those makeup trailers. And in fact, it was David Bowie's trailer. It was dark outside and cold, coolish. It was wet. Opened the trailer door. Bright light. Ah! Bright light spews from the door. And inside it's bright, like a makeup trailer would be, because you need bright light for makeup. Bright. You take a left. There were the three of us. 1, 2, 3. Oedipus, myself, the record person, Coco Schwab, Bowie's handler, who loved him, and maybe another record guy, a couple of other people. Maybe there's a photo of it. Maybe 6 to 7 people in all. Bowie was very gracious even then, and people talked to him a little bit, asked him questions, but this was quick because the show was about to go on. The show would start in maybe 15 minutes. It was raining. We said hello. We were all excited. I'm sure we were like, I know we were like kids, because I heard us broadcast later describing the event, and we were still like kids, all at Twitter. And we said to David Bowie, we played all your songs, all of them. He said, did you play Liza Jane? I said, yep. And he goes, well, whoa, I guess you got them all then. So that was a big deal. We got the gold stamp of approval from the man. I don't know what's going on with my. I'm doing this both on Zoom and on. I'm going to see if I can make this look better with a little adjustment. Let's see. It's not great. No, I can't. That's as good as she's going to get. Okay. So we're not done yet with the Bowie story. It was raining, as I said, and he had to go out. He had this bright yellow suit on. You know, the one that he wore on that tour? Blonde hair, yellow suit. It was raining. Poor David Bowie's going to get his yellow suit all wet. What's going to happen? Well, we had an umbrella with us. It was Oedipus's umbrella. But it very soon became the WBCN umbrella when I graciously offered David Bowie Oedipus's umbrella. Take our umbrella. You need it to get on stage. He said, oh, no, guys, I couldn't. We said, yeah, you got to. You have to. It's the BCN umbrella, which Oedipus was always very good about that. Everything became about the station. It was what was good for the station, even in the smallest details like that. So Bowie used the BCN umbrella to go out on stage, and he did a great show. Well, we were all tickled and came back to the station. I believe that Carter had been on earlier in the day, and a woman was on named Raz, Carla Razwick, known as Raz on the radio, whom I liked. I believe she drove a Plymouth Valiant or an early Dodge Dart. Not important. And we came on with to share our stories, but we also decided that we were going to smoke one of the David Bowie cigarette butts that we had procured earlier in the night as in a ceremony, which is pretty cool. I mean, if you had any idea how much we were into David Bowie, this was a huge deal. And the idea was that if we smoked, and this is probably true, if we smoked this cigarette that David Bowie had actually smoked too, it was a fairly long butt. He didn't smoke them down to the nub. If we smoked the same one, his lips had been on that same cigarette butt, we would probably get some of David Bowie's molecules, cells in our system, which is absolutely probably true. Probably some cold germ, whatever was on that cigarette butt placed there by Bowie. Well, we got some of it. Like if it had COVID on it, we probably would have gotten COVID. God, don't you hate hearing that word COVID? Eesh. So we did it. That was taped. It does exist. I won't play it for you now. It's interesting to hear how goofy we sound. I think one of the reasons is it's probably recorded on cassette, and I don't think the speeds of cassette was exact. And I think it might have been recorded slowly, so our voice is a little high. But also, we were younger and we were like, oh, excited, like little kids. Much to the consternation of, we were full of ourselves. Poor Carla Raswick, she hadn't been able to go down there. But we did it, and that's what radio was like back then. And it was cool. And everybody at home, probably everybody coming home from the show, if the timing was right, they got to live that experience with us. And there have been so many experiences like that folks got to experience with us. It was a shared experience, and that was what BCN was all about. The jocks will tell you the stories about walking down Newbury Street back when, before iPads and iPhones, before smart stuff, when everyone listened to the car radio. Everyone. And lots of those folks listened to BCN. So you could go walking down Newbury Street on a busy day and you could hear BCN as you walked, coming out of the car windows, coming out of storefronts and stuff. So that was the level of shared experience that it was. It was the internet of the day. It's where you went to find out what the news was, where you find out what's cool, to hear music. It was a thing to be part of. And I will, as we go along, share more stories of shared experiences. Like the BCN fireworks. That's something you probably forgot about. How the behind the scenes on that was intense for me. What time is it? Let me share that. Why not, right? I'm not going to have time to share all the BCN experiences in one video, probably. So, no, you want me to save that till later? Okay, I'll save it to next time. We'll hear how the fireworks really were put on when it comes to the musical soundtrack. We'll talk about the lunchtime concerts. We'll talk about Marathon for Meals. You may not know what that is. The remote broadcasts. Talk more about Charles. We'll talk about the Moscow trip. We'll talk about bungee jumping, Woodstock 95, Woodstock 99, spinning gigs, Patriots broadcast, working the Grammys, interviews with people like Marilyn Manson, Shirley Manson, David Lee Roth. Actually, just lunched with him. I did not interview him. Sushi with Johnny Rotten. There's the story of introducing Spinal Tap, softball with Joan Jett, on and on and on and on. So there's so many of those. I guess I could do the fireworks. Let me tell you about the BCN fireworks. Students would come back to school. This was a student town. They'd come back to school. We wanted to make a splash. Oedipus wanted to make a splash. Very wise. Have some fireworks. Hey, we're a radio station. We're going to have a soundtrack too. And the soundtrack is going to be synced to the fireworks. It's not going to be random. Now, this is before there was a digital tape that was matched up to the fireworks. This was manual for a few years, one or two. Tom Sandman created the soundtrack. He worked with the Grucci fireworks people in a very non-digital way, in a very analog way, and got a sense of what the fireworks was going to be and created the soundtrack to go along with it. After creating the soundtrack was put on a series of carts, probably 60-second carts. That's what's in my memory. A lot of them. How long were the fireworks? I don't know. That long. Maybe they were 2 minutes. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. But the whole soundtrack was divided up into cartridges. It would look like 8-track tapes. They were on a loop. He might have put on a minute of music. The tape might have been 2 minutes long, could have taken 2 minutes. So since there were only 3 slots, maybe some of them were 5, whatever. The point is, I would be on the phone with Tom Sandman. He'd be watching the fireworks. And so when Purple showed up, I would play Purple Rain, and it had to be timed. I had to hit that Purple Rain one when he told me to on the phone. The big challenge was this: to play the right thing at the right time. Oh, I know what the problem is. I didn't turn on my lights. Hold on. I'm such a doofus. Come on now. Now that I have the lights on, I'm going to go into my Zoom and try to make it look a little better, if I can. Hold on. Settings. Background. Yeah, baby. That's a little better. No, it isn't. Okay, hold on. Is that... Oh, that bright sun is shining there. That's not good. That's weird, right? It's just going to have to stay there. But that's a sun flare. So, we're back to the fireworks. The big challenge was this. There was X amount of music on each tape. The tapes would self-cue themselves, which is redundant. So you could pull them out without stopping them. However, I needed to pull them out before they self-cued, before they got to their end, which meant I had to stop them. So I'd have to put in number 1. Okay, hit number 1, Bradley. Go. Boom. Pot it up. Okay, there's number 1. Get ready. Get number 2 in there. All right. Turn it up. Okay, go. Hit number 2. All right, put number 3 in there. Hit number 3 now. Hit number 3. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to have to hit number 4 in a minute. But the number 1 slot, it's still got a stupid tape spinning around in it because it hasn't queued up. So I'm going to have to stop it, which is cool, right? Just stop that first one. But as you get going, it could get confusing. Which one did I start last? Which one do I stop? You had to pay such attention. It's something I'm bad at. I had to focus so hard on, all right, I started this one, and now I'm going to stop that one. Because if you stopped it, the soundtrack to the fireworks would stop. And you would be a complete dick. I would have been a complete failure loser. I'm happy to say that I did not fail at that ever, not even once. I feel like I took the whole thing extremely seriously when it was crunch time, and that maybe had something to do with my longevity there. I worked there 28 years, and so that might have had something to do with it. Oh yeah, that looks much better. I got to remember to turn on the lights. I did when those challenges came up. I just would focus like crazy. Fun. I had a lot of fun, and just messed around a lot. But every once in a while, it was pay attention time. Okay. Let's see. Lou Duffy says, I don't want to post this until I see what he says. The Rock, top of the whole experience. What does he say? Hope it's not bad. How about a big round of applause to those who brought The Rock to the top of the whole experience daily? Yes. Still tuned in and turned on. Yes. Thanks, Lou. Lou, that is a wild picture. Is that really you? Okay. We're going to stop it now. We've gone an hour and 9 minutes. That's just about right. I will put this, post this in the form of an audio podcast, like I did the first one. Upcoming, I'll finish up with, I think there'll be 2 more. I'll go into all the details of WBCN, and then I'll do WBZ. WBZ won't take that long. even though BZ was equally important to me, maybe more important to me, and even though I had, believe it or not, more freedom at WBZ than WBCN, it won't take that long. There just weren't as many events. Because I would go in that every day and do my work. I will go through the people I met. I'll go through the details of what it was like and how awesome it was. But there won't be, there wasn't a lot of softball with Joan Jett, etc. Is it surprise you to hear me say more freedom at WBZ than BCN? Absolutely. I am very fortunate in that I have been highly autonomous autonomous to an unheard of degree in my radio career. Like usually people who, after they leave BCN, they go work at some other station where they have to play a playlist and have to say what the people tell them to say. Not me. When I did the talk radio, complete freedom. You don't get the gig if they don't trust you. And when they trust you all the way. Never did anyone say, don't talk about that. Never did anyone say, talk about this. Always 100% complete freedom at WBZ. Not the case at BCN. As time went on, we didn't have complete freedom to play the music. But at BZ, always 100% complete freedom. So I'd stop there. This will be good. And remind me next time to turn on the lights, right? This is so much better. And I got to close the curtains to keep that splotch of sunlight out. It's creating an artifact. Okay, Lou Duffy, just hello to a few people. Dale, love your stories. Good afternoon. Barton, hi. Joe, John Hearn. And there you go. I'm going to try to leave these permanently on the audio podcast. That's on Buzzsprout. It's called the Bradcast. I'll put the link up there. Oh, and if anybody's listening, I do this show on WZBC now where I choose all my music. It's the music I want to hear. I put a lot into it. It's professional, but not too professional. Weird. The music is weird, but not too weird. I talk some, but not too much. It's a balance. Again, the idea is to juxtapose things so that the whole is greater than some of the parts. It's called Ignore the Machine. You can find it on Mixcloud. Try Mixcloud. I have links to it on my Facebook too. Mixcloud. It's called Ignore the Machine. If you've never tried Mixcloud, do it. Just Google Mixcloud, and when you get to Mixcloud, search Ignore the Machine. Can I trust you to do that? It gets harder after this, which is something Oedipus used to say. One final thing about Oedipus. You pay attention to the things you care about. I remember everything Oedipus ever said because you want to pay attention when the boss speaks. I remember everything he ever said. I remember everything he likes, dislikes. I know every song he doesn't like, every band he doesn't like, because I didn't want to play those bands that he didn't like. You will note, I did not play a lot of Grateful Dead, even though I did run the Grateful Dead hour, but I know Eddie was not a fan of the Grateful Dead. He was a punk. Who else did he not? I know he did not like Frank Zappa. I did not play much Frank Zappa. And maybe that also has something to do with why I lasted 28 big years. Okay, I really got to go now. Once I get rolling on this, I don't want to stop. That's the talk host in me. You realize this is only 1 hour on WBZ. I would do 5 of those a night, 5 nights a week, 25 of these. Dan Ray and I together supplied, so he did 4 hours. I did 5. So that's 9 hours out of 24 hours. So what percent is that? That's more than a third of that whole station's programming ourselves, except for the weekends. So I did a lot of talking, and I'm used to it. I generally don't talk much anymore. I have a whole theory. I don't post much on Facebook, opinion-wise, because I don't want to I don't want to argue for free. I don't argue for free. I don't get why you guys argue for free. It's a waste of your precious time. arguing on Facebook. You're not going to change anybody's mind. You're empowering trolls. Yes, you should opine on Facebook. Give an opinion, but don't allow comments. Don't make yourself. I don't think you need to make yourself available. Avail yourself of trolls, of people that argue just to argue, whose identity is to be mean to you. So I never comment other than, hey, that's great. And if somebody's mean, say, I want to, but then I don't. I say, no, I'm not getting sucked in. I do not argue for free. And maybe you should stop arguing for free. Time is precious. And if you're going to waste time, waste it watching Breaking Bad. Don't waste it on arguing with trolls. Enough said. Bye now.